It's Brian Kilmeade.
Now, what I saw in Ukraine, which is what's really incredible, is that they are winning modern warfare. What they're doing with their anti-drone technology, I mean, they are really the tech bros of the future. They are implementing on the front line anti-drone air defense technology that is winning this war. With our help and assistance, which they're going to continue to need for the long-range systems that Russia's bringing in and that are attacking Kyiv with. But what their anti-drone technology that no one else has, that they are implementing, they are winning this war. We need to be on the side of that war of the future that they're winning and support Ukraine.
So that is Mike Turner, congressman from Ohio, talking about his visit to Ukraine and what he found. Stephen Moore is with us now, former chief of staff of the U.S. House and founder of the Ukrainian Freedom Project. Stephen, welcome back. 2 weeks ago, you were in Ukraine, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, I was about 10 miles from the Russians. And we were taking a car to a doctor whose car and entire hospital had been blown up by the Russians. We couldn't help with the hospital, but we bought him a car, so at least he could go to the other hospitals in the area.
So what is your focus in the region?
Well, we're doing a bunch of things. One, in general, the Ukraine Freedom Project just goes to places that other people won't go and gets back the correct information, because not all your listeners, probably all your listeners are getting good information, but there's not everyone is giving that information that you're giving. And so we're trying to help get good information. So
when you heard Congressman Turner say that in many ways they're winning and the drone technology is balancing out this power, is he being overly optimistic? Not at all. And we've been telling people this for a long time, is that by almost every measure, Ukraine is winning this war. And what the measure by which Russia is winning, they're taking tiny amounts of land at a cost of tens of thousands of soldiers. And I'll give you a metric that will relate to your listeners. And that is that Putin has lost enough soldiers just in this year to fill Arrowhead Stadium 3 times, to take a chunk of land equal to less than half of Palm Beach County, Florida, the president's county. So, it's a medium-sized county. They couldn't even take enough to take all of it. So they feel like they're doing damage with the drone technology, something that wasn't even there. It's accelerating at a dizzying pace, and it's up to Ukraine to stay ahead of it. And I'm hearing great things about their ability, especially come December, January of this year, ability to really put up that wall, a virtual wall against Ukraine. Against Russia. Drones. Yeah. Well, them and Poland and Estonia and Finland and many of the other countries that have been attacked by drones or had their air Romania.
Airspace. Yeah.
Belgium.
Yeah. Well, so here's something that we've done that illustrates what's going on in our role, is that there's something called the Baltic Security Initiative, and it's about a $230 million funding from the U.S. government to go to Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, who are on the front lines. And we were in Estonia about 3 weeks ago when the U.S. government cut off that funding, and it's about 17 minutes of federal spending, so it's like almost nothing. But what happened shortly after that is Vladimir Putin sent 3 MiG jets into Estonian airspace. There's a saying among the Russians. Lenin said it first: "Take your bayonet, push in. If you feel something soft, keep pushing. If you feel steel, don't push." So when we cut off this sort of funding to our allies, Vladimir Putin's watching, and he pushes harder.
Makes no sense.
Yeah.
It makes absolutely no sense. I want you to hear Keith Kellogg, who I think the president's beginning to listen to, because he's a guy on the ground in Ukraine who was there as a contractor during the Biden years and now is his president's advisor there. This is the one where he talked about what Zelensky requested of the president.
Are you saying, though, that it is the president's position that Ukraine can conduct long-range strikes into Russia, that has been authorized by the president?
I think reading what he has said and reading what Vice President Vance has said, as well as Secretary Rubio, the answer is yes. Use the ability to hit deep. There are no such things as sanctuaries. That's one of the reasons I believe that this last week, and it has been confirmed, that President Zelensky asked President Trump to get Tomahawk missiles, which give you a depth. They're really good systems. America makes the best systems in the world.
So do you think we should give them the Tomahawks? And then if we start hitting in Moscow, the big fear among the Biden administration was escalation. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I think that you can look back on Putin's statements and he said he's going to use nukes like 26 times. Like if Finland gets into NATO, he's going to use nukes. If F-16s come into Ukraine, he's going to use nukes. And so Putin does, what that does to Putin is that emboldens him. And it's part of their plan. If you look at their propaganda plan, which has been fished out of Kremlin email box, it says, create a nuclear psychosis in the West. And psychosis, their words, means something that's not there. And so yeah, I think it's a great idea because, again, Putin responds to strength. And the Biden administration, if they had let Ukraine use American weapons inside Russia in 2023, you and I would be here talking about sports because, the war would be over.
All right. I want you to hear what Mike Turner said that he found out when he went there, cut 27.
Will the president lift restrictions on Ukraine's ability to use long-range weapons to actually attack Russia?
Well, and he really needs to do so, because what's happening with that pressure that's on the front line.
Because he has the old Biden policy.
Right, well, he does, and that's what he needs to release, because with the pressure on the front line and the fact that Ukraine has developed anti-drone technology where they're taking down Russian drones, they're using their own drones to attack Russia, but Russia has long-range weapons that they're attacking that front line. Ukraine needs to have the ability to use long-range weapons to push Russia back. And when they're able to do that, they will get their territory back. If they are able to do that, they will win this war.
Because they're better fighters and they know what they're fighting for.
Yeah. Oh, the courage and the bravery. I talked to folks at the front just 2 weeks ago, and we were in one of those places that Putin hasn't been able to take by force, but wants to take diplomatically, right? He's like, just give me this strip of land. And everyone that I talked to was like, I will die fighting for this strip of land because it's my strip of land. And I know what's happening over there where the Russians occupy, which is that people are being tortured, women are being raped. Putin has shut down every church in occupied Ukraine. For Catholics, there's not a single Catholic priest left in occupied Ukraine because they've all been tortured or murdered or run out of town. So nobody wants to live like that.
How do you feel about Zelensky just saying, after the war, I'm not running for re-election? How did that go over?
Yeah. So Zelensky is popular right now among Ukrainians because he's their president and they're at war. And ironically, when President Trump attacked him in the Oval Office, in February, it actually raised his popularity. Kind of like, you can't do that to our president. Only we can do that to our president. And So I think it's good, man. I think that they need to demonstrate that there are a democracy and that this is not a power play. And it's really not. It's just a bunch of people trying to survive the best they can at the hands of the second largest military in the world, and they're winning. Again, 3.5 years they've stood up the Russians.
What about Zelensky's popularity? They say he's about 54%. I mean, but you have some distinct party differences. But it seems as though the Klitschko's and Poroshenko, those are the ones I know that you probably know more. They keep their powder dry. I don't see a lot of friction among politicians, but what do you see on Ukrainian TV?
There's a little bit here and there. Everybody, looks in the mirror and sees the next president of Ukraine in the mirror, right? And so the polling shows that the Ukrainians want a military leader, and that would be the current ambassador to England, Zaluzhny. Thank you. Zelensky. And he was the general. And prior to the current one, he was the general for the first half of the war. People like him, and people want a military leader to keep them safe from the Russians. And that's, I think, what we'll see in the next election.
Very interesting. Here's more from Keith Kellogg when he talked about this has to be an American problem, too.
My biggest concern is that a mistake can happen, and that causes for a larger escalation, be it the attacks by the drones into Poland or the aircraft that are overflying Estonia, whatever it's going to be. You have to be very, very careful about it. And when I was up at the UN this last week, I talked to the National Security Advisor for the Japanese, Masataka Okano, and he said, hey, by the way, make sure you understand this is internationalized. Yeah. And what he meant by that is he said, in our neck of the woods, the Chinese are being very, very aggressive about it, as are the North Koreans. So this is just not only a European issue. This is a global issue.
Right. I think we fully understand that. I hope so, because the president said, well, it's not our war. But Ukraine, by the way, there was a meeting in Moscow, and they had envoys from Britain, France, Germany yesterday, and Ukraine was invited to observe. And they talked about how their new stance when it comes to jets going into their airspace. They said they're going to shoot them down. The Russians took very copious notes on that. Europe has also said they're going to expand their drone wall among NATO allies, and they're going to use Ukraine technology to do it.
Yeah.
Germany just committed to $90 billion already to procure weapons, only 9% from us. And their chancellor came out and said, all that frozen Russian funds should be dispersed to Ukraine. That is very different.
Oh, yeah, man. This is the turnaround since Trump came to office on Europe is breathtaking.
Because he told them, you know what? I don't need NATO. You need me in NATO.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely the truth. And the Belgians are the worst, man. They control $200 billion in frozen Russian assets, and which is like twice as much as we've sent to Ukraine. And they could make a huge difference.
And they're refusing to release it?
Yeah.
Have European allies done that? Like, have they insisted they do it?
Yeah, so there's about $300 billion in frozen Russian assets out there. There's $7 billion that American controls. Someone needs to step up and start dispersing this stuff to Ukraine.
Because you know what they're worried about, right? They just said the sanctity of the international system. That's what they worry about.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, if, China's invested here and in this bank, could it be frozen if you don't like what they do with Taiwan? The answer is yes, but they don't. Then they'll say, if that's a chance of happening, I'm not putting my money there. That gets the bankers upset.
Yeah, and that's the case. Is that Europe has shown over and over again that they're more interested in their money than they are in global stability.
Because they haven't had to worry about it.
Yeah,
they didn't think the threat was real.
Yeah,
I do get the sense, but you're there, that they do know the threat is real.
Here's the way Europe divides is that you've got the Baltic states, the Scandinavian states, and the Dutch and a few others there. They understand if you lived under Russian occupation or in the Soviet era, you don't want it back, and you're willing to do anything. The Baltic states and Poland all spend more on defense as a percentage of GDP than we do, and so they're great partners. Now, France, Belgium, Spain, they're on the beach sipping cocktails in the Riviera.
Spain
right?
especially.
Yeah.
Spain is a joke.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. There's everyone else at least made up a story of why they'd meet 5% of their GDP in spending for NATO when Trump demanded it. And Spain just said, no, we're not interested at all.
Yeah, that's it. We're not going to do it.
Yeah.
All right, but they'll have to stay in the alliance. Good luck.
Yeah.
Stephen Moore, thanks so much. How do we get your videos? You cut a deal with Angel Studios?
Yeah, so Angel Studios now is taking our content. And there was a church yesterday that was bombed, narrowly missed being bombed. They were opening their studio, their sanctuary of 4,000 people. This was their opening day. The Russians tried to stop it. 4,000 people showed up to worship anyway. And so you can look at this content under A Faith Under Siege on Angel Studios. Angel Studios has picked us up. It's A Faith Under Siege. Check it out. The first episode's free.
Stephen Moore, thanks so much.